Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, it's been a rough couple of days for some people in the Caribbean as we have a hurricane now. That's right, Hurricane Fiona, not tropical storm update. We also have a story coming from Seattle as people return from their Alaskan cruises into a very interesting situation at the airport. First off, let's start with Hurricane Fiona. She is now in the Dominican Republic. She has hit Puerto Rico and she has caused complete power outage in that area as she was bombarded with heavy rains. There's flooding all over the territory. In fact, one river was reported to have risen over 12 feet in a matter of hours, rising up to 25 feet, which is higher than it's ever been in its recorded history. That's how much rainfall has hit the island so far. As I mentioned, power is out there and people are doing their best to keep away from the rising waters all over the place. The government there is saying that it's not going to be as bad as the last hurricane that hit, but it's still going to be bad. Right now, there is a lot of relief efforts in the way and people missing from certain areas, that there's search and rescue going on. Of course, this affects all flights and affects all cruising and sailing in that area, including shipping just of general goods. Some good news coming out of the United States is that the federal government has issued an emergency warning and a state of emergency for Puerto Rico. It's now going to get some federal funding and also frees up resources like search and rescue operations and recovery. So they're on top of it. It's just not a great situation, as now the hurricane is set to pick up speed, and within the next day or so is expected to hit a Category 2 hurricane as it hits more open water. It's supposed to go by Wednesday up to from 75 mile per hour winds up to 120 mile per hour winds. That's almost a 100% rise in the winds in the area. It is curving more now out towards water, but it's just skirting Turks and Caicos on its next trajectory into Bermuda, which is expected to go directly over Bermuda as it heads up into the Canada eastern coast, off the coast of Nova Scotia, around Saturday, Sunday, depending. The hurricane has slowed down a little bit while it was heading over the islands. We'll see what happens. So if you have a cruise or even a flight into any of the areas that are affected, keep an eye on your emails and voice messages and text messages coming from cruise lines and your airlines as well, because things can change. I remember when we were in Japan, we were expected to set sail around 5 o'clock and we got an emergency notice saying, hey, get to the cruise port, we're leaving 3 hours early. And that is a possibility, especially along the East Coast. If you happen to be, say, sailing out of Boston or New York City, New Jersey, and the hurricane is going in that general area, they may leave in a different direction. They may leave early. It doesn't look like I'm going to head to Canada on my cruise when I leave next Saturday, because by the time the hurricane gets towards that area, it'll be past, hopefully, the New York region, New York State, and I up into Canada, which means, hey, we will be going in the other direction because we don't want to head into that hurricane. What we see when we get there will be a completely different story. Next, I also have a story coming from Seattle. Yeah, wait to hear this one. It's an interesting story. But before I get there, let me just invite you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. If you want to keep up to date with all things cruising and anything that can affect your cruises, from protocols to flight delays to luggage lost to tips and tricks to, hey, hurricanes getting in the way as well. That's what we try to do here on the channel, just keep you up to date as well as inform and hopefully a little bit of entertainment here and there. So I hope you'll join us on this journey and just join the channel by hitting the subscribe button. I really do appreciate it. It really helps the channel out. And thank you to everybody who's done so. And thank you to everybody about to do so. Again, I really do appreciate it. Well, if you were one of those people who were lucky enough to be on an Alaskan cruise last week out of Seattle and returning to Seattle, you probably had a great cruise, you probably had a great time, and then you were in for a rude awakening when you got back to Seattle and headed to your flight home at the Seattle airport. Apparently it was so bad on the weekend that they had to line people up all the way into the parking garage at the Seattle airport, which is a long way from security. Now, this wasn't because of not enough people at security. They had 27 out of 29 security checkpoints open, almost full staff during the peak periods. So it doesn't appear that it was short staff or anything like that. It just seems to be there was a ton of people all at once, especially coming that day apparently from cruise ships, where they were announcing at the airport that roughly about 5,000 flyers were dropped off by buses from cruise ships every hour. That's a lot of people coming in to fly out in one day. Now, the head of the airport came out and said the longest time people spent in line to get through security was only 90 minutes. And the TSA came out and said it was only 60 minutes. But when the news media and that were interviewing people who had just stood through that line, many of them reported 2 to 2.5 hour and longer wait times to get through. So which one do you believe? Well, it depends, right? So, but a very, very heavy day. Many people were too late for their flights and had to get rebooked and redirected again, causing even more delays as it went along. Not a great fun situation when you go. But again, this is one of those tips that I try and leave for people. If you are flying home on the same day you're getting off the cruise ship, don't book a morning flight. I know it seems very simple. Oh, I booked a 10 a.m. flight and we're supposed to get off the cruise ship around 7:30 in the morning. That's 2.5 hours to get to the airport and through security. Should be no problem, right? Lots of problems can happen. First of all, there may be a delay at the cruise port. You may not be able to get off the cruise ship as soon as you think you might be able to get off. There are many times I've sat there waiting an hour and a half for the security to set up and check us to begin taking people off the cruise ship. We're supposed to get off at 7. We didn't start getting off until 8:30. So right away, you're already an hour behind just then. Then take into effect that you might now be in traffic to try and get to the airport. It might take you 30, 40, 50 minutes, depending on how far the airport is from where you're getting off. And then you gotta get through security at that point. And if there's a long line and you booked an early 10 a.m., 10:30 flight, you have a high probability you may miss that flight. So I always recommend no sooner than 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I know it's not fun to sit around and wait at an airport to be able to, get on your flight home. You want to get home, you just want to get settled as fast as possible. But it's much better to sit around an extra hour at the airport waiting for your flight to take off than trying to scramble and find flights, or worse, possible hotels to stay another night because your flight was delayed or you missed your flight getting there. It's just one of those things I always recommend. Try and book at least 1 o'clock in the afternoon or later. I get off a cruise ship at 8 a.m. when I return on my next cruise, and my flight's not till 6 o'clock at night. So I know I have lots of time to get there, and if anything goes wrong at any point, I'm still going to get my flight. I can just find something to do during the day. A bit of a pain, but at least I know I won't be late for my flight. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.